If you're interested in traveling, then one of the most important things you need is a passport. You can get pretty much anywhere with your passport, even if you don't have clothes or a phone or anything like that. But the most important is that little piece of paper that says you're allowed to leave and re-enter the country you're from. A sad truth to me is that only 51% of Americans have their passport. That's a very small number in my opinion, and I think more people need to get their passport. So if you're over 18 and live in the US, then this video is going to teach you how to get your passport if you haven't got one before. Let's get right into it. So I want to start off this video by saying all of the information that I'll be talking about will be linked down in the description as a link to the US government's website of applying for your passport. That is the text document that I used, that I followed to sign up for my passport, but I thought I would make a video to make it a little simpler and easier for people to understand, especially also because I could clarify some of the questions that I had when I was applying for my passport. The first thing you need to do is to fill out the application. You could either download it as a PDF, which looks like this, although it can look a little scary since there's a few pages. You really only have to fill out the bottom 2 pages. Or you could also use the form filler, which is linked on the website down below as well, and that allows you to type in your information and it'll just provide you with an already pre-filled application form that you could download and print as well. The next thing you'll need to provide to get your passport is some proof of citizenship of the United States. So for most people, that ends up being a birth certificate. Another option you have is bringing in an old passport if you maybe had one from when you were a child, if your parents applied one for you, or some other documents if you were not born in the US, is a naturalization form or any type of document that would show you're now a citizen of the United States of America. The next piece of documentation that you'll need is some type of valid identification. So that could normally be a driver's license in most states. Some states do allow you to use one of the government identification cards if you don't have a driver's license and you just have an identification card. Now that you have your documents ready, you're going to need to make photocopies of all these documents. So they also have to follow a certain rules of what the sizing is and everything like that for the documents you'll be providing. Right here on the screen, these are the specific regulations that you have to follow in order to make photocopies of these when you provide them for your passport application. Now that you have everything prepared, you have your application, you have your documents, you have your photocopies, you're ready to go apply for your passport. However, there is technically one more step in between, but it can be done at the place of the application as well if that place provides the option to do so. That is the photo to actually be displayed in your passport. When you look online to find a passport location, if you use the resource I have linked down below, is a website you can use made by the US government. I'll let you know that it does look quite old, but it's a website where you could put in your zip code and you could find the closest passport location. There's also a checkbox that will allow you to select if you need a photo location as well, because only certain post offices where you're submitting these applications can actually take the photo. So if you're not taking your photo somewhere else, say somewhere like CVS, or if you know someone who could take you a passport photo, then I recommend selecting the option to take the photo there, which is what I did, and it makes it a lot easier since you could do it all in one place. Sometimes you do have to pay a little extra fee for this, but I think it depends on which post office you're going to of what the fee will actually be. Now, finally, you're at the place where you're submitting your application and you're going to have to decide what type of passport you want, and you'll also have to pay some fees. In my opinion, there's only really one passport you need, as the other doesn't make sense unless you're doing very specific conditions. In that case, it might be worth it to get both, but always the passport book is the most important. The two options you have are either the passport book or the passport card. And the big difference is that the passport card only allows you to enter Mexico and Canada over land or sea borders. It is not valid for any international air travel, and that's why it's not really that important unless you have a specific reason to have this, such as maybe you travel to either of these countries very frequently over a land border. In my opinion, it's always the best to just go with the passport book, which will allow you to go to any international country that the passport is valid for. Of course, some countries need visas, but getting that passport book is the most important document you'll need to travel internationally. I mentioned that because when you look at this chart here, you'll see the difference in prices between the passport card and the passport book. And some people may be either confused or they'll see the cheaper price and hope that they could just pay for the card. They're like, why do I need the book? Well, you won't be able to travel many places without the book, so definitely go for that option, or both if you need both for some reason. The other things you need to pay for are the acceptance facility fee, so that's something you have to pay towards the post office that you're going to. Also, you may have to pay for the photo if you're doing it there or somewhere else. And then finally, there's the option to expedite your passport. For me, I decided to expedite my passport because I did it a little late. The processing times for these come around to 3 to 4 weeks if you're doing regular, or 2 to 3 weeks if you're doing expedited. I still definitely recommend giving yourself a lot of time before your first trip if possible. Try not to rush this. There are some options if you need to expedite it even further, but those are much harder to come by, and that's why try and order your passport as far out from your next trip as possible just to save any headaches. These expedited times are only for the processing, so it still takes more time to travel through the mail. There is one more upgrade you can purchase, which is the mail expedite, and that costs around $22.50, and that allows you to get your passport 1 to 2 days after they ship it out. So that's for the expedited shipping, and the $60 is for the expedited processing. So there's a lot of different steps, because first all your documents have to be mailed to the facility, then they have to process your documents and then ship them to you. So that's where, like I said, if you could give yourself about 2 months to 3 months to be able to get your passport before traveling, that would be the best option. However, if you are in a time crunch, say you need to get to a wedding or something and you don't have your passport, then there are still some options for you, but you might have to travel a little farther for those. What that option is going to a passport agency, which is different than a passport acceptance facility such as a post office. At the passport agencies, you could get your passport only within 14 days of your travel. I believe you do need to also provide proof that you'll be traveling in that time. However, the issue with this is there's far and few between of these passport agencies. There's not as many, such as just post offices, which are in almost every town. Not all of them accept passports. However, this option, like I said, is only if you really need it. Try to start early if you can. Finally, now, once you've paid everything, you've submitted your applications, all you have to do is wait. There's also a link down below if you want to be able to check the status of your application as it's being processed, so you kind of have an idea of when it might arrive. I'm super excited for you to get your passport. If you haven't got one before, I hope this video helped you out to get one. It's going to unlock so much for you for traveling. If you have any more questions about the process, definitely feel free to leave a comment down below and ask me. I respond to every comment, so if you have anything you're worried about, just let me know. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to learn more about travel in the future, I definitely recommend getting subscribed so you can see more videos like this, either whether they be about locations or specific things you need to learn for travel. It'll definitely help you out. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.